Welcome to the Geek Speak Show.
People who get it, get it.
This is the Geek Speak Show.
Interviews with the movers and shakers in geek culture.
This is Mark Zickery, writer, producer, director of Space Command.
Hey, this is Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn, and one of the original founders of Image Comics.
Hi, I'm Chris Hardwick.
God bless the geek.
They're listening. You're consuming. You're watching with your ears. Oh, you just listen.
The Geek Speak Show is powered by GeekTyrant.com, GameTyrant.com, MightyVille.com, RamaScreen.com, and ZergNet.com.
Please make a note of it. Here are the hosts of the Geek Speak Show, Henry San Miguel and Marc Dorris.
Here we are for another exciting episode, we hope, at least, of the Geek Speak Show. Welcome, everybody. I think, hey, Mark, there's a big movie coming out this weekend?
That there is.
Something to do with the guy that flies, comic book or something?
He can jump over buildings, and I don't know, he can run faster than a speeding bullet or something like that.
In a single bound, and there's no con anywhere inside. Man of Steel comes out this... Yes, I'm not over it yet. Man of Steel comes out this weekend. We're all ready for it. I haven't seen this one. I know I revealed I did get to see Star Trek Into Darkness a little bit earlier and wasn't very happy with it. But with this one, I haven't seen anything, and that's fine. I do want to go into this one knowing as little as possible so that I can go in there and get my mind blown when Zack Snyder, with help some help from Christopher Nolan, finally gets it right. So we figured, why not talk Man of Steel, Superman, because it's on everybody's minds and words and, you know, in your cubicle, everything you're talking. Superman, when are you going? Let's talk not about Superman. We all know and love him. How about the people who created him? Siegel, Shuster. And what better way to do it than through a comic book? There is a comic book version of their origin, not the Superman origin, but the real origin of Superman. On to talk about it is the person who wrote it. Jon Judy is his name. Jon, welcome to the Geek Speak Show.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming.
I hope you appreciate it. I got to say, by the way.
Oh, very much so.
Because I did a comic, and I'm not going to talk about it because I know we're going to talk Superman. And you're right, we should talk Superman. 75th anniversary movie coming out. Yeah. All right, got to focus. I'm going to stay focused. But I did a book that got published by Arcana, and I fired off an email to you guys begging to be a part of the show and never heard back from you. I wept. I took extensive counseling sessions. I think I finally put my life back together again, and then just like that ex that comes creeping back, emailing you at 3 o'clock in the morning, 10 years later, I just hear from you out of nowhere.
It was actually 2 o'clock in the morning.
And get over it.
No, it was actually 2 o'clock in the morning time difference. But now that's you true, all know why that producer is no longer here. That's all I'll say.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. I didn't want to ask, but you know.
Yeah, I'll handle the producer duties for now. No, but that's why. No, and I am glad you are here, and actually pretty timely because, like I said, Man of Steel comes out this weekend. Now, this book is not tied into the movie in any way, than it mentions Superman, and Superman also is it's not really about Superman. Like I said, it's about his creators, Siegel and well, why am I trying to explain it? You wrote it. You go ahead and tell everybody what it's all about.
Well, it's 24 pages. I think that's what they gave me. 24 pages as best I could do in 24 pages of compressing the life of Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the two lifelong friends who, as teenagers, created Superman. I approached it very much as the way I describe it as a love letter to the creators of a character that's, for as long as I can remember, been an integral part of my life. An essential part of my life. So that my hope anyway is that comes across and that people who, I have shown it to a few people saw the script. I haven't actually seen the finished product myself. I've seen a couple of pages of the art. A few people have seen the script, people who I generally respect their opinions and they tell me, and of course they could be blowing smoke up, you know, I really don't know the standards. I almost said where they were blowing smoke up, but they could be blowing smoke up somewhere. Let's just say that. And they seem to feel like, yeah, that comes across, and it reads like, here's a fan writing something for other fans to say, hey, didn't these guys do something really great?
And Jon, this is Mark. I've got a question about
that. Well, wait, before you guys continue, let me jump in. Let me let you guys know you can blow whatever you want, wherever you want. No one's telling us what we can or can't say. So there you go. Go ahead.
Oh, that is so good to know. Because the moment I heard you do that voice in the pre-interview, the world, I wanted to blow something so bad.
Thank you for sharing, John. Again, this is Mark. Just a quick question. This sort of style of writing is a little bit new to me, and I like the idea a lot of taking, Siegel and Shuster and then a comic book about them developing Superman, which is arguably one of the most, iconic characters of any type of, well, anything beyond comics, beyond books, beyond movies and whatnot. As a fan of Siegel and Shuster, is that where the inspiration came to write or create like such a story in a comic book format?
Well, I mean, in this specific instance, it actually came from Darren Davis, the owner of Blue Water. I've written some stuff in the past for them, and I don't know, Blue Water is a little bit below a lot of people's radars, and a lot of people choose to keep them off their radar. And so I don't know what you guys think, but they're very, everybody has a Blue Water opinion, I guess. And so I don't want to be, I'm trying to tiptoe around here, but I'll go ahead and say it. Some people really hate Blue Water. I don't know where you guys are at on that, and I'm not, asking you to take one side or the other, but I'd written for some stuff.
We're lovers. We're not haters, John, so no worries there. We are lovers of all things.
Well, excellent. Well, good. I'm glad to hear it, mainly because I have very low standards, so I love everything, too. Blue Water, I'd written some stuff for Blue Water in the past because they're one of the few companies that are really accessible to newbies. And we'll talk to anybody. And, of course, there's a lot of reasons for why they're accessible to newbies, and we won't go there, until you ask about it. I'll answer anything you ask me. But so I'd written some things in the past for them, including a bio of Jack Kirby. Now, that one I can say, because I did actually see that one. I have the actual printed copies. I loved it. I was very proud of how that turned out. Really happy with that one. The Superman, the Siegel and Shuster one, I can only speak to the script. I was happy with the script. I hope the final product turned out well. But Darren sent me an email one day out of nowhere, said, hey, would you like to do the same thing only for Siegel and Shuster? And as I said, I mean, Superman has been a central part of my life for really as long as I can remember. And so that was, a no-brainer that I wanted to do that and to be a part of that.
Now, you said before that you have or have not seen any part of the finished project. Like, I've got a couple of snippets from the pages here. Maybe you've seen these, just like a couple of pieces of art with some words and whatnot that you'd find in the comic book, the 24 pages that you have. Have you seen any of that already or no?
No, I've seen 2 uncolored, unlettered pages. Okay. And they look fine, but of course it's kind of hard to judge that, the whole thing out of that. But what I saw looked fine.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's more than fun. It's actually really, really good. Henry sent this to me, I want to say last night / this morning, I guess. Probably the same time you got that call at 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever. And so I got a chance to look at it. It was really good. I like the idea of a comic book that talks about the history because, I mean, there are diehard fans that will want to know about Siegel and Shuster, but there is a certain demographic that probably wouldn't want to get into the history of that as they find that not so much interesting as, the character they've created, which in this case is Superman. But by creating a comic book and giving that in the hands of the people who love Superman so much, I think it's a great way to talk about the history of the character through the perspectives of Siegel and Shuster in the form of a comic book. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a great idea. I love it.
Well, thanks. That's encouraging. I'm glad that what you saw looks good. I hope that's a good indication. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I came from a place of love, and so when Darren said, hey, how would you like to do this one? I mean, I was all over that. It's sort of, well, I'll go ahead and say, like Blue Water, as far as I know, and I'm not sitting there looking over their shoulders at their books or anything. As far as I know, Blue Water doesn't pay any of their creators unless they achieve a certain threshold. I know that's what's my contract with them in terms of sales, and that threshold is basically not going to happen. So going into a deal with Blue Water that you're not going to see a dime. And what you hope then is that the physical product, the actual book, turns out to be pretty good, and you can take it to conventions and sell it. And then furthermore, you have something to sort of show people and say, look, I did this, and maybe it will lead to something else. Point being that if you're going to do something for Blue Water, you got to really want to do it because you're not getting anything else for it. So when Darren said to me, how would you like to, do a biography comic? I pitched him Jack Kirby. He said, sure, go for it. That was like a no-brainer. Like, I love Jack Kirby. This will be awesome. Then when Darren came back to me and said, how would you like to do Siegel and Shuster? Again, no-brainer. So it was done purely out of love and joy and appreciation. And I hope the final product that comes through and that people get that experience. I'm glad what you saw seems to reflect that. And again, people who have seen the script tell me it reflects that. I really haven't seen the art. So I hope the whole package does as well.
In other words, Blue Water gave you the same speech that I gave Mark and Rachel and everybody that's come on the show. If you really love what you're doing, go ahead and come and do it, but you're not really going to get paid for it.
Yeah. Although I don't know the ins and outs of the podcasting business, I assume you're not generating huge amounts of obscene revenue over there.
Not obscene, no.
Yeah.
Yet.
Not obscene, right? PG-13 maybe.
Yeah.
So I
Maybe
don't know.
G.
Again, same thing. I don't know the ins and outs of Blue Water's business model and what they're making. But they've been around for several years, so I assume somebody's making something off of it. It just doesn't seem to be the creators. And that sounds like I'm slamming them or trying to detract from them, and I'm not, because nobody ever promised anybody anything either. You know what I mean? I mean, they told me, look, here's what we're doing. But I did find a certain irony there, because one of the things that I sort of make the central framing theme of the Siegel and Shuster bio is the fact that Siegel and Shuster really got a raw deal on Superman. They ended up selling the character for, I forget the exact total, but it was around $130.
Oh, God.
And, yeah, and they didn't really, by all indication, because they fought in courts for years trying to get some of these rights back, by all indication, they didn't really know what they were getting into. They were a couple of comics fans that wanted to make comics. I mean, that's it. Their dream had always been to do comic strips, because when they grew up, that's what there was. But regardless, they saw this as, somebody's going to give us money to do comics. That's great, let's do it. And so they sold the initial character, the initial story for around $130. And then they stayed on as the writer and the artist for several years and basically directed the character, and they made a good amount of money for the time, but nothing compared to what National Publications, the predecessor to DC Comics, nothing compared to what they made. Completely screwed over in that regard. And so then when they fought back, they ended up losing altogether, and really much of their life story is really very sad. They created this character that's made so many people so very happy, and yet for many, many years, Jerry Siegel he would refuse to talk about Superman. It just made him too emotional to think about this character and what it had meant to him, and they created them as boys. And you think about these two fanboys, and they really were like original fanboys. Like, they created a science fiction fanzine. They were right there at the beginning of fandom. These two fanboys, and they just wanted to get paid to make comics. And then they just wanted to own and retain what they did. And instead, they spent decades in just struggling. I mean, really near poverty level life that they were living. Joe Shuster at one point took to drawing illustrations to accompany pornographic novels.
Yeah, I remember.
Bondage and S&M stuff, and the characters all look like Superman and Lois Lane, which is really disturbing. It's really freaky. But I just think there's something kind of poetic in, creating this story about these fanboys that just desperately wanted to make comics and allowed themselves, wittingly or unwittingly, to be exploited in order to do that. And then the people writing and drawing it are fanboys who desperately want to make comics and are wittingly or unwittingly allowing themselves to be exploited to do that. I don't know. I think there's a certain irony there. But I didn't try to prioritize that in the storytelling. The stories about Siegel and Shuster, I just was kind of bemused, I guess, by my own participation in the creation of the story.
Well, okay. We're talking to Jon Judy. He's the writer of the Siegel and Shuster, the Creator of Superman story. You can actually find that in Orbit. I guess it's a collection from Blue Water, and the story is in there. But I was going to ask you, Jon, what do you cover from because it's a long story from the Siegel and Shuster. But what exactly do you cover in the story?
Well, I could do the Hollywood version. We opened with the spaceship crashing in Kansas, which actually is how I opened.
Do I need to do the voice again?
I opened on we opened on a spaceship crashing in a cornfield in Kansas. But no, in terms of what actual events of their life are covered, because it's a bit of a fractured narrative, I move back and forth a little bit, and I sort of use the Superman as a framing device. But anyway, in terms of what's actually covered, really, I start with their lives in Cleveland, Ohio. They met as teenagers. They went to the same high school. And were right away fast friends. And from the time they met in high school to the time they died, they never lived more than a few blocks from each other.
Well, let me ask something about that. was reading a little bit more about Siegel, just know, in preparation for this interview here. And one of the things that I got to see is that Joe had said essentially that he wanted to create a character that stood for justice, truth, honesty, and whatnot. And something that I came across that I found very interesting is that Siegel's father, Mitchell Siegel, died of a heart attack during a robbery when Siegel was in junior high school. And I just got to thinking, is it likely, and maybe you talk about this in the comic, that Siegel created an image of a character that would, be able to provide justice in his own mind in regards to this exact incident? Like, it's a tragedy.
Yeah, like a wish fulfillment of a character who could have been there to prevent this happening to his father. Yeah. You want to be, I don't remember ever coming across an actual quote or any documentation where Siegel actually confirmed that, but come on, it's an obvious type of conclusion to jump to. And certainly that was how I presented it in the book. I think what I said was maybe he was inspired by, because you create the prototype superhero. There were other superpowered costumed adventurers in comics and in prose fiction well before Superman, but really the character that put it all together. So basically the first superhero, you create the first superhero and your dad is murdered in a store robbery. Come on, it's not a big leap to say, I bet one caused the other. Yeah. And I bet that was something on his mind, a bit of a wish fulfillment, a sort of a Quentin Tarantino Inglourious Bastards type of, wouldn't it have been cool if this happened instead? Yeah.
No, that's a good way of looking at it. That was exactly what I thought. I thought it was really fascinating how, the idea is two kids, high school, they both come from little to nothing, if anything at all, and they create an icon that turns into one of the biggest franchises of all time. But I thought it was extremely fascinating to know that Siegel had some history with the development of the character, potentially coming from, a tragedy in his own life. That was really brilliant. I like that. It was a touching moment for me, John.
Oh, well, I don't know if you were saying that it was a touching moment in the book for you, but thank you if you were, and if you weren't, I'll pretend you were. So thank you.
Let's go with that one.
Or if you just mean that the reality of it is touching, because you're right, the reality of it is touching. It's kind of hard not to make a touching moment out of that when that's what you have to work with. It really is very sweet and sad. But you hit on something else there too. Both of the guys came from little to nothing. Siegel, his dad actually owned a store, a business, and so they weren't hurting. They had a middle-class existence, but they certainly weren't wealthy. Joe Shuster came from poverty. His family had very little, very poor. But either way, they both were living through the Depression. And that was something that was... and Siegel did confirm this, that was key in the creation of Superman, was they were responding to all the injustice around them and sort of saying, it ought to be different. It shouldn't be like this. And the early Siegel and Shuster stories, and I don't know, if your listeners haven't read any early Siegel and Shuster stories, they should. If for no other reason than if you're going to call yourself a geek, you should know where you came from. Respect your roots, damn it. Play a Nintendo and a Game Boy and read some Siegel and Shuster Superman. And there's no excuse. Like in my day, kids, the only way you could afford to read any Siegel and Shuster Superman stories is if you were to have the money to spend on the old 80-page giants that DC used to do back in the 60s that would reprint some of them. Now, they are widely collected in a range of affordable reprints, from the Superman archives to the Action Comics archives to the Superman Chronicles to the black and white reprints that they do in the giant phone book format. You can pick up all kinds of really affordable Siegel and Shuster stuff. And I'm not saying you're going to read it and it's going to blow your mind because it's great comics work, great comics artwork that, oh my God, I thought Watchmen and Mouse were good and now I understand this is what comics can be. No, let's be blunt. They're really crappy. They're very crude. Nobody knew the rules. They were making them up as they went. And so the art is very simplistic, very crude, very poorly drawn. The stories are absurd, but they're charmingly absurd. And they're fun, damn it. So read them.
I think we've had a lot of listeners that enjoy the old schoolness of things, the golden age of comics, silver age of comics, as opposed to some of the modern age. But they all get a lot of love from the people that we have listening. Good. But something that maybe we should talk about too is the name of the book. Is what exactly do you call it? It's an appendium? Is that right? Is that what I'm to understand?
I'm sorry. Is it what?
It's a collective works, right? It's not just like a single 24-page.
Honestly,
trade.
I don't know how they put it out. I don't know they put it out. I know that at one point Darren said they were going to do a collection of some of the bio stuff with the Jack Kirby and but I don't know how they ended up doing it. Good question. Let me see if I can find that out.
Well, actually, from what I understand, it's in a book called Orbit, and the story is collected in there with some other ones, from what I know. And
yeah, the book is called Orbit, but I mean, he's done some individual Orbit releases as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know in this instance how he's doing that. Like Jack Kirby, that Orbit was done individually. But it's a series where, and I don't know who came up with that title, but yeah, every installment is a concise, a little short biography of somebody else, and generally there is some sort of geeky type of theme connecting them, but some of them are really stretching it. Like Paul McCartney, I'm looking at it right now. They did Orbit Paul McCartney, and I don't know if you can really call, the centerpiece of Beatlemania geeky. They were kind of the epitome of mainstream. Although I guess Superman is anymore, isn't he? I mean, all geek culture has been sublimated, has been co-opted by those mainstream people that used to beat me up and take my lunch money.
And me too.
And I kid, I packed, but they did beat me up. And now, they've just taken all that over. But I don't know how they're doing. Let's see. But anyway, yeah, it's called Orbit.
Yeah, well, you can find out. I have a link on our link section. You guys can go on there and find out all about it. Order it if you want to. Jon Judy is the writer. You're welcome back anytime. Thanks for coming on. Before I do let you go, though, have to ask you, what do you hope to see this weekend in Man of Steel?
Good question. For me, I hope I see something that, and I know this is kind of a vague phrase, but that gets Superman. The last effort at a Superman motion picture was largely flawed. I don't think it was as bad as a lot of people made it out to be, but there were certainly some major problems with it. Let's not even go into, was it really a good idea to do a Christopher Reeve sequel, 30 years later? But things like Superman flying outside of Lois's home, using his X-ray vision and hearing to spy on her. Superman is not a super stalker. That's just wrong. That doesn't get Superman. Superman is a guy who puts himself last. And yeah, he might have missed Lois. He might have longed for Lois. He might have wished he and Lois were together, but he would not put those things together and say, ooh, I'm going to go stalk Lois. He would say, I miss Lois, but too bad. Oh, well, I lose because I come last and everybody else comes first because I'm Superman. Somebody once said, and I don't remember who it was, that the key to understanding Superman is he could take over the world if he wanted to, and yet he doesn't.
Right.
And that's really the key. He's the ultimate awesome good guy. He loves everyone on this planet more than he loves himself. He is the ultimate Christ figure in a costume. I hope I see a movie that understands that and gets that. That's my number one wish.
Yeah, well, without spoiling.
Well, my number one wish for this movie, my number one wish involves money. But my number one wish for this movie is that they get Superman.
Yeah. I was going to say, without spoiling anything, I think from the trailers and everything else that's out there, I think that's kind of what Zack Snyder and Christopher Nolan are going for in this one, that he could take over if he wanted to, but he doesn't. So
I certainly hope so, and like I said, you're right. The trailers look like it, but I've been hurt before, so I'm trying to keep my guard up and go into this thing cynical, and ready to be disappointed, so that hopefully I come out pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, so it's Jon Judy, the writer of Siegel and Shuster, the creators of Superman. It's we think, in Orbit, but you guys can go to Blue Water Productions, their website. It's on our links. It's all on there. What were you going to say, John?
I just found it is being done individually, but yeah, I think Darren did say they were going to collect it as well, along with the Jack Kirby bio and some other bios I had nothing to do with. So they are nowhere near as good, but come on now. The ones I did were awesome, and they're worth the price of admission alone.
So there you go. Jon Judy, again, thanks a lot for coming on. You're welcome back anytime.
Why, thank you both for having me.
All right, take care, John.
You too. Bye.
The Geek Speak Show will be right back.
Comics commentary with Marc Dorris on the Geek Speak Show.
All right, guys, releases for June 12th. We have Marvel Universe Avengers Mightiest Heroes number 15, Alpha number 5, Wolverine Comic Reader number 2, Wolverine number 4, Venom number 36, Uncanny X-Force number 6, Ultimate Comics X-Men number 27, Thor God of Thunder number 9. In addition to that, we have Savage Wolverine number 6, Fantastic Four number 8, Deadpool number 11, Avenging Spider-Man number 22, Avengers Assemble number 16, Astonishing X-Men number 63, Guardians of the Galaxy number 3, and Wolverine and the X-Men number 31. I know for me right now I'm trying to focus on the Superior Spider-Man, the arc that takes place of the primary Amazing Spider-Man after, I want to say, 700 issues, so I'm going to get caught up on that myself. I think we had issue number 11, I think, came out, was it last week before last week? Past couple weeks or so. I don't think we're going to see another issue for that series, though, until June, but really excited to get my read on, and as soon as we're done with this, so I can get caught up with that. But something else that I came across that was really interesting is that coming September, we have Marvel Comics is going to be partnering with another big name, the Lego Group. Now, some of you guys have may already seen some of the commercials or whatnot. The Marvel characters are getting their own Lego build sets. Okay, so you're going to see characters like the Avengers, anywhere from Hawkeye to Hulk to Iron Man to Thor. They're all going to be in the form of Legos. But what I thought was really interesting is that at some point in September, we're going to see a little over 20 issues that have variant covers of their Lego counterparts. So, for example, in the all-new X-Men number 17, it's very likely you're going to see on the cover a Lego version of Wolverine. I'm going to give you the list of all the comics that they have posted now that should have a Lego variant cover for those comics, and they are, as I just said, all-new X-Men number 17, Avengers number 21, Avengers number 4, Captain America number 12, Daredevil number 31, Fantastic Four number 13, Guardians of the Galaxy number 7, Hawkeye number 15, Indestructible Hulk number 14, Infinity number 3, Iron Man number 17, Marvel Universe Avengers Assemble number 1, New Avengers number 11, Mighty Avengers number 1, Nova number 8, Superior Spider-Man number 19, Secret Avengers number 10, Thor God of Thunder number 14, Wolverine and the X-Men number 36, Uncanny Avengers number 12, and X-Men number 5. You can also go to marvel.com if you want to see a sneak peek of what some of those variant covers will look like. They're pretty neat. I'm a fan. I actually have some of the Lego pieces myself. I got a Deadpool, Magneto, Wolverine helicopter set. You guys may have seen it at one Lego store, Toys R Us or whatever, but I bought one of those for like $20. Build that. I've got it on the shelf sitting right behind me, as a matter of fact. Moving on, we're going to talk about DC. This week of the New 52, it's the week of the 21s. Among that list is going to be Batgirl number 21, Batman 21, Demon Knights number 21, Green Lantern Corps number 21, Nightwing 21, Suicide Squad number 21, and Superboy number 21. Also, we're going to be seeing Batman Arkham Unhinged number 15, Batman Lil Gotham number 3. That's Lil, L-I-L, not Little, so I don't know what they're doing abbreviating that there. But Constantine number 4, Katana number 5, Masters of the Universe, The Origin of Hordak number 1. That's Hordak, not which you guys may have thought you have heard. Smallville, season 11 number 14, which those unaware, 14 issues in thus far, is a sequel to, I believe, what was it, I think it was like 10 seasons on the Smallville TV show. Anyway, so there's a comic book that takes place of the TV show that ended at season 9, season 10, or whatever, and this is season 11 that we're focusing on, 14 issues in, that continues that universe. So it's really interesting. I personally have not read it, but I read a bit of the synopsis and plot online. Really exciting there. Superman Unchained number 1, Threshold number 6, World's Finest number 13. Amongst DC Graphics novels, we have Catwoman Volume 2, No Easy Way Down, that's $25. Deathstroke Volume 2, Lobo Hunt, $19.99. Resurrection Man Volume 2, A Matter of Death and Life. It's collecting issues 8 to 12 plus Suicide Squad number 9 for $15. Stormwatch Volume 1, issues 37 to 47, another $20 there. And Stormwatch Volume 2 features issues 48 and 49 as well as 1 through 11, but it will be concluding Warren Ellis's run on Stormwatch. So whether or not Stormwatch is done or if someone else is going to be picking up, we're going to have to find out. Of course, all the prices that we've just said are subject to change, but that should be the general idea, kind of give you a feel for what the prices will be like at your local comic book stores or comic book stores sold near you. That's it for this week's comic commentary, guys. If you guys want, you can follow me on my new Twitter account, Dorris Undead, D-O-R-R-I-S, Undead. Getting kind of lonely, just made it. Need some followers, guys. Come on. We'll catch you guys next week. We'll talk about what comes out and what you guys should buy. Later.
It's time for the Geek Speak Show Book Club. Our books
Or graphic novels.
tell us what your favorites are.
Books at thegeekspeakshow.com.
And I am about to tell you what my favorite is, at least for this week. I've had a pretty cool one last week. Had to talk to the author. Now, have another author on. My pick is Aleric Monster Hunter. Came out a couple years ago. Well, I'm not going to tell you all about it because we have the writer, Fred Wiehe. He's on with us. Fred, welcome to the Geek Speak Show.
Thanks, Henry. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. So, like I said, I was going to tell him all about it, but since you're here and you wrote it, you go ahead and tell him without spoilers. What is Aleric Monster Hunter all about?
Okay. Well, I pronounce it Aleric, but everybody else pronounces it Aleric. So we're going to go with that pronunciation. So Aleric Tomabimba is a 200-year-old gypsy, and he hunts monsters for bounty. He's a bounty hunter. He hunts down werewolves, vampires, whatever. But he has a dark secret of his own. Well, obviously he has to if he's 200 years old, and he's still hunting down monsters. Basically, in this novel, he, instead of hunting down a monster to kill it, he has to save it. So he has to save a zombie this time, who shows up at his doorstep with a business card in his pocket. And he's a different kind of zombie. He can still think. He can still speak a little bit, and he still has a little bit of his memories left. And it's up to Aleric to figure out how he became a zombie and see if he can save him.
Yeah, so like I said,
that's basically the plot line. Although there's subplots running through there with a love triangle between Aleric and his one-time wife. I'll just say that one-time wife and his new girlfriend, a gypsy fortune teller.
I was going to say, there's a lot of things going on, not just, hunting the monsters. And out of all the monsters, you could have gone with vampires, which they are in the story also, by the way. No spoilers there. But
yeah.
Why did you go with a zombie?
I went with a zombie, well, basically because it's a storyline. But zombies, I've always been big on zombies. I love George Romero. Grew up on those kind of movies. Love the new type of zombies that move really fast. I think it was
the 28 Days Later kind.
28 Days, yeah, and 28 Days Later. I always get mixed up with the title for that Sandra Bullock movie, which is The Alcoholic. Very similar title, so I want to make sure I say the right title. And World War Z, which is coming out
later this month.
Graphic novel, and coming out later this month at the theaters. So zombies are very big. I love zombies. They have this something to them that vampires and werewolves and that don't have, and I think it's maybe the total loss of humanity. And so I wanted to do something that was different, where there was not a total loss of humanity, that the zombie still had some humanity left, which gave him at least a chance.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it away whether he survives or not.
Yeah, you guys have to read it to find out the answer to that. Yeah, but I was going to say, we've had Robert Kirkman on and some other people that do zombie stuff. I asked them that question that you just answered, why are zombies so popular today? And I get kind of like what you said, that it's us, but it's not at the same time. I mean, you can drive a stake through a vampire because it's a monster. Werewolf, same thing. But humans, especially if it's somebody from our family who turned, how can you shoot mom or your son or whoever it is? So I think that's it's cool kind of in a way, but at the same time it's really terrifying that you would have to resort to that.
Right. It's like you said, it's easy to kill a vampire, I guess, unless it's somebody that you knew in life, but
right.
That doesn't happen very often. But with zombies, usually zombies do come back. Their families are usually their first victims.
Yeah.
And so you're faced with that. What do you do? I mean, they still look like them somewhat, but they've lost all their humanity. So I like the fact that I put a new twist to the zombie thing with allowing Waso Wanko, by the way, that's his name in the novel, the zombie. He's a gypsy as well, to retain some of his humanity. And he's not changed into a zombie the normal way. Whenever you use the word normal with the word zombie, it seems a little weird, but He's not turned into a zombie by being bitten by another zombie or by a voodoo curse.
We'll say the
or
typical
anything
way.
like that. That's a better word, a typical way. So it's up to Aleric to find out how he was turned into a zombie, which threads into a subplot between him and the King of the Gypsies, Karanzatini.
Yeah, and I was going to say, actually, the whole book, the whole story, the subplots included, it's very detailed. So I was wondering what kind of research went into the book.
A lot of research went into the book. Extensive. I've been researching Gypsy lore and legend and their spoken language, Romani, for years. Gypsies first showed up in a book that I had published in 2000, Night Songs, as secondary characters, and I started my research there and continued on. And I decided that it would be cool to have a gypsy as the lead protagonist. I don't know if that's ever been done before. Usually gypsies are either secondary characters or I can't say that word.
Harbingers? No, I can't say it either.
Yeah, harbingers of evil, and this time he's the hero. Although he's definitely an anti-hero, kind of in the vein of Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name,
right?
Kind of thing. But a lot of research went into that, and obviously into other areas too, because I had to get into. I did a lot of research on zombies as well, and all the different. It's amazing. Once I started into the research, I thought zombies would be very simple. I thought I knew everything there was to know about zombies, but I found out I didn't. And there's a lot out there. I actually found some websites. This was really cool. I found some websites. I can't remember the URLs, but if you Google it, you could probably find it, where there are stories, like historical stories of people who were zombies that we don't know about, like presidents and inventors and stuff like that were kept secret by government black ops. Now, obviously, they're written and they're put out there as if they're true stories, but obviously they're not.
Wait, you mean Abraham Lincoln wasn't a vampire hunter?
To my knowledge, I was a history major in college, and to my knowledge, Abraham Lincoln was never a vampire hunter. I could be wrong, though. I've been wrong before. My wife tells me all the time I'm wrong.
That's what they want us to believe, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking to Fred. He's the writer of I'll say it like you said now, Aleric Monster Hunter. It came out a few years ago. Very good book. It does have a lot of stories going on. You're a professional writer, writing instructor also, and you've written other books. We'll talk about those in a later when you come back to the show again. But this time around, we're focusing on for the book club just on the book that I just finished reading, Aleric Monster Hunter. I think you kind of answered it, but when you started doing the research on the gypsies, did you already have the idea for the story, or is that when the story for the book started coming together?
I already had the idea for the story because, like I said, I had done gypsies before, but never to the extent as in this book where I needed a lot more research. So I picked up research that I had done for Night Songs and then continued it into this book. I actually talked to some gypsies, found out a little bit about their spoken language, because there is Romani in the book. And hopefully I've done it justice. It's not a written language, so it's very hard. It's very hard to be able to do that.
Well, I'll say you fooled me. I mean, it sounds pretty genuine when I read it.
I think it is. It's for the most part. I mean, I'm sure that literal translations maybe, like if a gypsy looked at it, might say, "Oh, there's a little problem here, a little problem there," but. Right. I think for the most part I got it right. Yeah. And since yeah, it was a very hard book to research. Whenever you're dealing with a people that still to this day are shrouded in a lot of myth and secrecy, and under the radar kind of lies. Still to this day, a lot of them live under the radar of what we take for granted. You know, our numbers are all in the computer, and anybody can pull us up and find out anything they want about us.
Yeah. In other words, they probably don't have a Facebook account.
No. No, most of them probably don't, or even a Social Security number that's their own anyway.
Right. And this is called Aleric Monster Hunter, meaning he's not just going to hunt one zombie. Are there any plans for a follow-up?
Yes. I am into the sequel right now. It's called Zero Sin. And zombies do carry over into it. In fact, I don't want to give anything away about how the zombies are made in Aleric, but someone finds the way to make zombies, and Zero Sin is basically a serial killer who believes that he who is without sin cast the first stone. He believes he is without sin. And he kills prostitutes and people who he feels are polluting the world. And when he comes across this formula to make zombies, instead of killing them, he decides that he's going to do something even crueler, and that is turn them into zombies. And so now San Francisco is being overrun by zombies, and only Aleric can save them. So that's kind of for the next book. And then the threads with the gypsies and the king of the gypsies and everything that concerns Aleric and his background thread through the second book as well. So anything that was left unanswered in the first book will crop up in the second book.
Okay.
I'm sure you might have some questions about what happened to Pirza.
Yeah.
And Wasso comes back into it as well, and things like that. And just because, I don't want to say that. Well, other things with Aleric's claim to the throne for the king of the gypsies, being the king of the gypsies. That will crop back into it as well.
Yeah, I know it takes a while with the research and just the writing of it, but when do you expect it to be ready?
I'm hoping it's going to be ready by early next year.
Okay.
Actually, out at the stores and stuff by either at the end of this year or early next year after Christmas.
Yeah, so all of you have plenty of time to read the pick. My pick for the book club this week is Aleric Monster Hunter. It's on our link section. You can go on there and find out all about Fred. Order the book if you can. I think it's still available, right, Fred?
It is. Well, it is available in a limited fashion. The hardcover first edition is out of print right now, but you can still get it from independent sellers. It is going to be coming back out in paperback with a new publisher August 3rd.
Okay.
So, you can still get some hardcover editions. They're just a little harder to find right now.
Yeah.
If you can't find them, you can always go to my website and just email me or go to PayPal and pay for a copy there, and I have a few copies left, and I can send you one. But I would email me first and say, do you have any copies I can get from you? And it would actually be signed as well.
Okay, cool. Even better. So again, go to our link section. It's all on there. I have a link to your website. Thank you, by the way. You did send me a signed copy. Thank you for that. And like I said,
you're welcome.
I did enjoy the book very much. I am definitely looking forward to the sequel. And I'm going to invite you now. Let me have you back in August when it comes out in paperback. We'll talk a little bit more about Aleric and also some of the other works, other books that you do also, because you do more than just Aleric. So again,
yeah,
Fred,
I just finished a new novel, so we can talk about that too.
Cool. So yeah, we'll talk about that. So like I said, thank you again, Fred, for coming on, taking the time to talk to me. Looking forward to the sequel, and we will talk to you again in August.
Great. Sounds great. Thank you, Henry.
Okay, so Mark, what do you have?
So for me, actually, I've got a collection of short stories in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Complete Sherlock Holmes. Now, this is a little bit of a throwback, okay, but bear with me. Sherlock Holmes is, like, to me, the greatest fictional character of all time, next to Batman. Both the greatest detectives ever do exist. But the Complete Sherlock Holmes that I picked up, I've read every single story by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, rather, and Sherlock Holmes. Now, it's a collective works of several stories, actually. It's a pretty big book. I want to say it's around 700 pages or so, but it's pretty addicting. I don't know. I've seen everything from Benedict Cumberbatch, who was just in the latest Star Trek Into Darkness movie, his BBC rendition of Sherlock Holmes. Big fan of the Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr., but nothing beats the original source material, which is the books. So I know I picked this one up at Barnes & Noble, pretty much any primary bookseller there is. Barnes & Noble's probably your main one. They've got a special collector's edition right now. It's like $25. It's a leather-bound book. It's really nice and has all the works. So just throwing it out there. That was a big one for me. It's good stuff.
Cumberbatch playing Sherlock Holmes. He's actually playing Sherlock Holmes. He doesn't all of a sudden say, actually, my name is Khan. No, I'm not over it yet, but okay, The Man of Steel is coming, ready for that. So those are our books. Keep sending yours, and I promise, I keep saying that, but I promise we will. I haven't done it only because we've been able to talk to authors and writers, and it's always pretty cool when we get to talk to them. We can't do, obviously, Sir Conan Doyle because it's a little hard to do without a seance. But, like we just talked to Fred. Last week we had Anne. We're going to start talking to a lot more writers because they want to come on. They have new books coming. So I promise, I know I keep saying it, keep on sending them books at thegeekspeakshow.com. I will feature your books sometime this century. So it'll be sometime this century.
That's the Geek Speak Show Book Club. Tell us what your favorite books or graphic novels are. Books at thegeekspeakshow.com.
All right, Mark, so thanks for your comics commentary. You ready for a quickie?
Oh, as always ready. First thing in the morning, that's the first thing I think of. What are we talking about?
See why we like him. He's always ready to do whatever it is, no matter what it is. But here it is, quickie. Big movie coming out this weekend, right?
That's true, yeah.
You heard about it?
I think it has to the grapevine.
I think it has something to do with comic books?
Yeah, just one of those things. I'm not sure. Remind me again.
What do you say we talk to some of the actors and the director?
I think that would be amazing. That'd be a good idea.
Let's do it then.
Are you ready? Here's a Geek Speak Show Quickie.
So if you don't know, welcome back from Krypton. How was your trip? Opening this weekend is Man of Steel, starring Henry Cavill, directed by Zack Snyder, produced by Christopher Nolan. I'm not going to talk to Christopher Nolan this time around. We did that last year for Dark Knight Rises. This time around, Zack Snyder takes the director's chair. Let's kick off with him. We all know General Zod. When you hear that name, you can't help but think Neo before Zod. I don't think he does that in this one, played by Michael Shannon. But let's start with Zack Snyder by asking him, this Zod, what is so different, without spoilers, what's so different about this Zod than the one we're used to from Superman 2?
I didn't want Zod to just be a villain because you want your villain to be relatable, but he's not written that way either. He's not just a villain. He has a point of view that's pretty solid. He has what motivates him to do the things he does in the movie are completely within the morality of his point of view. He, like Superman, hopefully the audience would be like, I guess if I were him, I might do the same thing. And I think that's what makes him interesting, is that you are presented with a character that really, from his point of view, is striving to do the right thing. But it just happens to be a kind of slightly broken point of view.
And again, without spoilers, but what is so different about this version of Krypton than the one we saw in Richard Donner's version?
With Krypton, because we had this, organic movie language that we were going for, the danger was like, it'll just feel like sort of sci-fi Earth. And I was like, no, I want it to be exotic, I want it to feel even though we're shooting it with the same cameras, I want it to feel like we're really literally on another world. And an ancient world, you know, the armor that they wear and the costumes. I kept telling everyone I want it to feel like they've had these things for generations. This is like, this is an ancient culture that has kind of been without progress for a long time. They kind of stuck in a rut for, you know, protocols and councils and all that stuff is kind of slowing them from, you know, making progress. But they've kind of reached a place where progress is not that big of a deal. And so, yeah, that was kind of our approach to Krypton.
You know, the word iconic comes to mind when we think of Terrence Stamp portraying General Zod in Superman 2. General Zod, going back to him, Michael Shannon plays him this time around. Why Michael Shannon, or how did he, again, without spoilers, how did he handle stepping into Zod's shoes?
You want Zod to be like every character, I guess, but you want, for these super iconographic characters, you really want to believe them, you know, and I think that's the thing that Michael really, for me, every time I'd watch him do his thing, it was always about like, wow, okay, that's real, like that's happening. And I think that in such an abstract and surreal environment, and with such an abstract and surreal character as General Zod from the planet Krypton, you know, sounds hard when you say it that way, but he took all of that made it better and then gave it back.
Talk about shooting the movie on location.
I wanted that experience of being out there on location to influence everything. Henry, all of us, design, not be, you know, corralled into shooting one little corner of the set because there was nothing else to film. Being able to kind of improvise, you know, as we filmed. And I think we did do that. And I think that shows in the movie. There's a much more organic quality to the film, even though, you know, look, there's huge visual effects in the movie. There's no two ways about it. But there's also some real gritty reality that we were able to get by being on location. And I think that just performance-wise, it just was better for the actors to be really there.
Speaking of the actors, the main one, Henry Cavill, how is he as the Man of Steel?
Henry has a big, you know, there's a ton of responsibility. You know, it's all the contradictions in a weird way that you have to understand. He's physical, but he's not physical. He can fly, but he has to pretend like they can't. You know, he has, you know, all the things he can do that he has to keep sort of inside, you know, but also doesn't resent that, and he's okay with it, even though he's been sort of persecuted by the human race. He still finds good in them, you know, all those things. That he absorbed that and loved it, you know, in a way that I think allows this Superman to be really relatable.
Thanks, Zach. That's the director of Man of Steel, Zack Snyder. Now, let's move on to General Zod. I've been talking about him now. Michael Shannon steps into the role, like the iconic role, like I said, that Terrence Stamp portrayed in Superman 2. Let's talk to Michael Shannon now, without spoilers. Don't turn away, no spoilers here. So, first thing is, what was it like being next to Henry Cavill as the Man of Steel?
Henry is very dynamic and charismatic as an actor. He's and he's very unflappable. I can't imagine how hard it's been for him, all the work he's done for such a long time, to not get bogged down by that. He's very, I don't know, the camera starts rolling, he hears action, and he just snaps into it. He's obviously thought a lot about it, and he has a real sense of what Superman or Clark or Kal would do and wouldn't do, would say, wouldn't say. And to him, Clark's sense of dignity and his sense of values are very important, and he'll always protect those, I think.
Now, you obviously have a lot of scenes with Henry Cavill as Kal-El, or the Man of Steel. You also have a lot of scenes with Jor-El, played by Russell Crowe. What was that like? Russell's
full on. I mean, the man knows what he's doing, you know. He's proven it time and time again. And he's a real man, you know. It was intimidating, honestly, when I found out he was going to be doing the part. And the first day I met him, back when we were training in Naperville, I was nervous, you know.
What motivates General Zod this time around?
He rose through the ranks, and he's a very fiercely devoted warrior, fiercely loyal to Krypton. Krypton finds itself in a bad way, and he's trying to figure out what to do about it, how to solve the problem, how to keep Krypton from disappearing.
You know, when Terrence Stamp played General Zod in Superman 2, he wasn't... It's an iconic performance. I've said it a couple of times now. But you didn't really see the general side of him, except for that one part with the army. Again, without spoilers, do we get to see more of the General Zod this time around?
I think anyone who's a warrior and spends that much of their life training to be a warrior and following out orders, once that structure is taken away from them, that society is taken away from them, they still have the impulse. I mean, it becomes part of you, you know. Whatever you do in your life, if you do it for long enough, how do you just let that go?
I'm talking to some of the cast and crew of Man of Steel. Thanks to Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures for allowing me access to these guys. Director Zack Snyder, we just heard from him. Michael Shannon plays General Zod. Now let's finish up with the man, not of the hour, the Man of Steel. Henry Cavill playing Superman, Clark Kent, Kal-El, last son of Krypton. Henry, how do you see Superman? I mean, he's been done so many times in so many different, iterations, radio, books, movies, obviously, TV. How do you interpret this character? How do you see this character?
He is a well-brought-up farm boy. At the same time, he's a young man or a man who has no clue who and what he is and why he's so different, which is wonderful, I think, because it has that traditional man at the same time, this guy who's very untraditional. He doesn't know what he is. And then his discovery of what and who he is something which layers his life with a sense of loss in that discovery, and ultimately an outsider at all stages of his life. And the only place he's ever made to feel at home is with Martha and Jonathan. And otherwise, even when he knows who his real parents are and what his real home is, he's made to feel even more of an outsider in that.
Now, we just talked to Michael Shannon, plays General Zod. He gets a lot of screen time with Jor-El. You obviously get you just mentioned him, you get a lot of screen time with Jonathan and Martha Kent. Describe it, without spoilers. I don't think we have to tell you that, but without spoilers, describe your relationship with your Earth parents.
Jonathan and Martha raised him to be the good person, the traditional moral man. And I think Kevin and Diane brought that to the characters exceptionally well. Kevin had an incredible sort of openness and softness and traditional dad type way about him when he played the character, and it was very easy to feed off. And the same with Diane. She played the caring mother so well, who was there's still that essence of slight fear of Cal or Clark for her, because she knows what he's capable of. And certainly with our interaction when I was playing young Clark, it's what will he do? What will he do? Constantly, and I thought that was fantastic. When I'm older, she's totally come to accept it, and she knows I'm a controlled person, and she portrayed that wonderful strength, which is where Superman gets a lot of his strength from, as much as it may be genetic. His upbringing, his nurturing, if you will, is from the likes of Jonathan and Martha, and the strength which Kevin and Diane brought to those roles makes it so easy to play that kind of strength.
Of course, Superman isn't Superman without Lois Lane next to him. Amy Adams plays Lois Lane in the Man of Steel. What was it like working next to Amy Adams?
I really like working with Amy. Amy's great. She's good fun. She brings a good energy to set. And on long days, you do need someone to goof around with sometimes. And as far as an actress goes, as a contrast, when you get the person, Amy, who you can goof around with and have fun with, and then she brings this wonderfully sort of powerful yet soft character. And I think the interaction between Amy and Superman is that she is obviously Superwoman in a societal sense, and then she's finally found this one guy who can literally sweep her off her feet.
Talk about Zack Snyder as director.
His energy is always up, and it's fun. As much as the hours are extremely long, Zack keeps stuff interesting, and he's excited, and it's cool for him too, and it's cool for us, and that permeates through the entire crew. We are making Superman, for goodness sake. It's seriously cool, and Zack reminds us of that with his attitude and his way of being every day. And I couldn't have asked for a better director for this job. Absolutely not. He's great.
Now, yes, like you mentioned, you're making Superman. It's a story that's known around the world. Everybody recognizes Superman from the costume, especially. It's a little different than what we're used to. When you first got into it, give me your first impressions on the costume when you first tried it on.
Impressions of the costume? I love it. I think it's a really good modernization of something very classic. It's got a very alien feel to it, while being recognizable as the suit that we know and love. I think it brings a sort of almost like a testosterone energy to something, which I think is required in today's sort of movie world, because everyone is so used to things being so high octane and visceral in the news. Movies are fantasies have to be even bigger and better, and I think the suit lends something of that to this. It's something which is exceptionally cool and otherworldly at the same time.
That, of course, is Henry Cavill. Heard from Michael Shannon, plays General Zod, and director Zack Snyder. The Man of Steel opens up this weekend. If you didn't know that, like I said, welcome back from Krypton. And if you haven't gotten him yet, what are you waiting for? Not after you listen to the show. Open up a new tab. Get your tickets now. IMAX, 3D, 2D, whatever you want. Just get in the theater and see it. Man of Steel opens up this weekend. Thanks again to Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures for allowing us access to Henry Cavill, Zack Snyder, and Michael Shannon. You have your tickets, I'm assuming, Mark?
I don't, but I'm going to be going at tomorrow's midnight showing with a group of people.
3D or regular or what?
I kind of want to do the regular. I'm not a big fan of the 3D. I've never been a big fan of anything in 3D, really, except I really enjoyed it in Great Gatsby. But
how about IMAX 3D? Because if 3D is not enough, you got IMAX too.
IMAX is the way to go. Those are like $25 tickets. That was so expensive. But I'm not cheap. I'll go for soups. For the soups.
How did you become Rachel's friend? She everything that has to be seen in 3D. I mean, you watch a commercial, it's got to be in 3D or it's not the same. But then again, that's what she wants to do.
So we can have different tastes.
So yeah, big duh. But in case you haven't heard, we've talked about it all show. Man of Steel is coming out this weekend. Before we get out of here, we'll talk about it, of course, in the weeks to come. What do you hope? What are you expecting from Man of Steel?
As far as for me, I'm not expecting too much, to be honest. But knowing that Christopher Nolan was the producer of the film, For me, I'm just thinking, okay, it has to be a good quality film. Nolan's overseeing it. He's babysitting as far as I'm concerned, but he's keeping it in line. As of right now, I think Rotten Tomatoes is giving it a 68% from critics, and I want to say an 82% from just users of the site. So I would assume that everyone loves it, except critics are being a little bit hard on it. But either way, the only thing that bugs me that I've seen so far of the Superman like movie is his suit. He looks like he's wearing one of those. I'm reminded of A Christmas Story when the Ralphie kid's wearing that bunny suit, that onesie. That's what I'm reminded of. But a big blue suit with a gigantic bulge in front. That's the only thing that I would complain about. I was like, when you get rid of those red briefs, like it's I can't think of the word. Maybe the contrast is off. Give him a red belt. You got to have something right in the middle, not red boots to all the way to the shoulders where the cape hooks on. It just looks weird to me. But I'm just being a nitpick at this point.
Yeah, I get again. I've liked some of Zack Snyder stuff. Other things I haven't, but I really hope he does get this one right, because it's been a while since we got the correct Superman from the comic books. Now, if I understand, this may be based more on the New 52 Superman rather than the what we all know and love. So we will see. But again, coming out this weekend, Man of Steel. We knew that. So. Next week's show, I keep saying it like 2-3 weeks ago. Again, not that we don't like you or anything, but I think Rachel's finally going to come back, and she's going to bring her new best friend, Drea Letamendi, who was on with us for the Star Trek vs. Star Wars show, which I think is also the last time Rachel was on with us, if I remember correctly. Yes, they won. If you're saying why, it's because of you. You guys, we left it in your hands. You let them win. So they're going to come on and now give them their award formally, and we're also going to talk about something that's a little bit more serious topic. Like I said, we touched it on the show, not in detail, but just a little bit before, especially when Ariel and Rachel and Louise and everybody, all the geek girls came on. It happened again a couple weekends ago. We went to see After Earth, the fake geek girl issue. We're going to talk about that with Andrea Letamendi and Rachel. I think she shared some of her fake geek girl stories, so that's what the show is going to be about. And of course, we'll give our thoughts on Man of Steel because it'll be out by then. So, like we always say, come on back next week. We'll speak more geek.
Henry and the gang will return next week with an all-new episode. The Geek Speak Show is powered by GeekTyrant.com, MightyVille.com, RamasScreen.com, Zergnet.com, and Collider.com. Make sure you're subscribed on iTunes, follow them on Twitter at Geek Speak Show 1, become a fan on Facebook, and watch event coverage on YouTube/Geek Speak videos. See you next week. Cheerio.
The Geek Speak Show.